Hello, and thank you so much for joining me once again for our Five Things series. I just gotta say, thank you guys so much for your support on the first video. I couldn't believe the numbers when they came in. I'm just dusting off my channel after being dormant for a while on my channel here, which you can subscribe to if you haven't already. But so many of you subscribed on my last video, and it meant the world to me. I started at 915-ish followers, and I ended up with over 1,100, and it just means so much that you guys showed out the way you did. I was kind of nervous to get back into the game a little bit, but very, very excited to bring you this content. If you could leave a thumbs up on this video too, that is something that definitely helps spike me in the algorithm. I learned I saw those likes go up and the views really, really boosted after that. So you're helping me so much by leaving a thumbs up. And please feel free to leave a comment too. I loved people weighing in on my last video on the 5 things that I recapped that I thought WWE could be doing a little bit better. We're going to dive into AEW's here in a minute, but that's what this 5 things series is all about. Every month, I'm going to take a look at 5 things that both companies could be doing better kind of earlier in the month here. And then at the end of the month, I'm going to talk about 5 things that both companies are doing extraordinarily well. These are not about creative, so I'm not going to be talking about AEW belt lineages and booking and things like that today. These are higher level kind of 5 bullet points that I want to go through, kind of view through my PR and marketing lens. So thank you so much for the support on the first video. It did triple the amount of views I normally do. Picked up, you know, I'm over that 1,000 subscriber mark, which is a monetization benchmark. So that means so much to me. Thank you so much. And just to pick up 150 subscribers, I know there's people out there with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but to me, that was like 10% of my channel of subscribers growth, right? So thank you so much for that. But I'm excited to dig into AEW. I think they're kind of at an interesting point right now as we are heading down the stretch into the Continental Classic from the creative standpoint. We have the TV deal done. There might be more on the way. So it's kind of an interesting time to look at AEW specifically as we're kind of like evaluating the entire landscape of wrestling at the moment. So I'm excited to dig in. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Also, let me know if you guys are interested in listening to this in podcast form instead. I find that most people tune in via YouTube for my stuff. But if you're like, you know what, I don't want to see your face. I'm trying to listen on the way to work, and I want to do that on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever. Let me know, and I will start uploading these in podcast form for you as well. But let's dive into 5 things that I think AEW could be doing a little bit better. A couple that might be out of the box on here, and a couple that I think people would probably expect. A couple of common criticisms across the board here, but we're going to start with one of the issues that is like probably more of a, I don't want to say hot button because it's not like it's controversial or anything, but something that has gotten a lot of attention for AEW, and that is making that live experience something that is sellable. And I think this is more complex than people give it weight to, and I'm going to break down why, but there's some obvious things in play here, right? You have WWE getting white hot again. That's obviously going to affect things. You have people spending so much more money on pay-per-views than they did before because you used to only have the big 4. Now you're running close to 10 a year, plus those intermediate specials. Those are free, but if you're trying to attend live, like there's just a lot more that AEW is asking you to spend money on until we get on Max with hopefully subsidized prices, right? So there's things that are a little more obvious like that, but I think one thing that people drastically underestimate is how much of this company's infancy was in the pandemic. It's crazy when you think about how early this company not only survived through the pandemic, but thrived with those dailies play shows. And by the time they were able to finally get back on the road, this product was white hot to people. They were dying to see it. So you had this kind of easier run, I think, because people were so excited, A, just to be doing anything in general because it was safe to again, and B, you know, they were already so excited about the product to have an alternative. WWE creative was terrible at that time. You started having people like Jon Moxley come in and Matt Hardy, and at that time Brody Lee, and all of this excitement around the product, all these new wrestlers who people were getting introduced to. So people were clamoring to get out and see this product. And then, you've now visited these markets 2 or 3 times. And that on top of asking people to shell out for more pay-per-views, they might be more apt to skip your weekly show when it's in town again because people are paying so much more for your product. But the pay-per-views always sell really well. So when I look at that, I feel like the difference is the pay-per-views are always like once in a lifetime feeling experience, usually just driven by the card. You can't sustain that on a weekly basis. That is just unrealistic. So how do you make the live experience something that feels once in a lifetime without relying on dream matches every single week to every single town that you're going to? I haven't even talked about the fact that we expanded from just Dynamite to Rampage and Collision and ROH, right? So you're now asking for double the amount of tapings, but going to basically the same amount of towns. Like, that's a lot now. You've expanded maybe beyond where your selling point is. So how do we make those things once in a lifetime experiences? And there's plenty of ways to do that. I know they had a change in the directorial position. I think about a year ago, maybe a little bit less. So sometimes those things take time to settle into place too, to actually implement strategies that you've researched and planned takes time. But when I see them doing things like passing out those newspapers that were asking where Tony Storm had disappeared to, that's the kind of shit I'm talking about that they need to do more of on the week to week. They, before Okada had come in, had dropped like Okada bucks and coins, I think, around to tease that he was coming, stuff like that. Include local celebrities and have them signed. Include local school mascots if you're running at a college and have them around. Like, make it feel like it's designed for them. I remember I went to Free Enterprise. It was one of the first shows that I went to with people that are in the podcasting space who I know and adore. But it was Free Enterprise by ROH, and it was such a cool experience because the tickets were free. AEW probably shouldn't do that. But when you got there, they had like a sidewalk sale of a bunch of old merch, and before you were going in, you could just pick through a bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about that merch situation in a second. But then when you went in, they had like one of those photo printers, and you could just take a picture with your friends, and they printed it out for free, and you could take it with you as this free souvenir, and it was a sponsored thing. And like, things like that are so drastically underestimated because you take that memory with you, and then when they come around again, it's, oh my God, I had a fucking blast, and I have that picture, and oh, I can get some merch for cheaper than I would online, and all these things start to click into your head, right? You take away those pieces of it that feel specific to the time that you went, and it's not always just a banger match, right? So I think they really need to hone in on that aspect of how is every week's live experience different than the week before. It's not easy. It's something that every entertainment form struggles with now because, you look at music, streaming has kind of killed album sales for the most part. So they're trying to figure out how to make concerts work in different ways other than spiking ticket costs, right? So they need to hone in on that. They need to hone in on that for sure. The next thing I want to talk about is let's talk about just what I labeled doing cool shit. They had this really big advantage over WWE where they were having their wrestlers go to the indies, and WWE was not doing that at all, right? They were having these interpromotional relationships, these talent exchanges. WWE was not doing that at all. WWE main roster wasn't even acknowledging NXT half the time, never mind things that were outside of their own ecosystem. They were showing up in places wrestling hadn't been before, and they're still doing a lot of that, obviously. Forbidden Door, and you see people showing up not just at the US Indies, but at Rev Pro and things like this. But WWE's pretty much caught up to them on all that stuff. Like, AEW was the envelope pusher. They were the leading edge company. They were bringing back things that companies used to do before there was a monopoly on the space and introducing new ideas. And we've kind of seen that halt a little bit. And I think they need to freshen that up. And I'm not saying that means they have to like run the Vegas Globe or whatever, but they need to be strategic in the way that they are presented to the public. There was something really cool when WWE didn't feel as accessible that AEW had to an advantage of that they felt very accessible. And now that's kind of gone, I don't want to say by the wayside, but WWE's just caught up there. And AEW's caught up to WWE's competitive advantage in a lot of ways of finances, essentially being able to monetize your platform and go do other stuff. Look at what MJF is doing. Look at what Mercedes is doing, bringing her belts to every opportunity that she can. So building those platforms for bigger exposure, and AEW allowing you the breathing room to do that. But they were really that envelope pushing brand, and then they kind of halted. And I think they need to find new ways to push forward the wrestling ecosystem so they can kind of get that edge back. I think that's really important when you're a number 2 in any market, to be the one that's pushing the envelope. Like WWE rolled out the ID program, right? They're basically franchising independent talent now. Like they were only looking at NIL talent for a really long time. It's a different landscape than it was a year and a half ago for sure. So they've got to invent new ways to keep that fresh, I think. And I would love for WWE to keep pushing the envelope to do cool shit. I think it's more important when you're number 2 in the market to be the one to push those ideas, those conversations, whatever it is, forward. Number 3, we all know this one, the merch situation, right? They have made great strides in this as far as the actual designs go. They have hired like so many great artists. Mel Coleman, of course, was kind of leading the pack with this idea, I think. But they brought on a lot of really great artists that were fans of the product, which I think is actually an underrated way to go. They're going to give a shit about what they're doing. They're going to know your product super well. I think it's great. And not only for merch, but we've seen an uptick in the quality of the match graphics, especially around pay-per-views. Even ROH, like those match graphics, the quality of them got pushed up so much. So that's really, really encouraging to see. That's really, really encouraging to see. However, the breadth of the products that they offer sucks. There's no way around it, right? Like, I know Sean has said on Fightful, like, the Lucha Brothers not being able to have masks that kids could buy is a huge swing and a miss. Those foam fingers from the Acclaim sold like hotcakes. There are things that they could be so much more honed in on in the breadth of what they sell versus just the design of what they sell that they need to be thinking about. And the abysmal live merch that they have is inexcusable for a 5-year company. The displays have gotten better. They look nicer. But my God, it is just like a couple of brand shirts and a couple of key talent shirts. For the longest time, it was like AEW brand and the Hook shirt, just black shirt with the word Hook written across the front and like not much else. It is such slim pickings there. And, you know, I mentioned this in the WWE video and it kind of applies here. Why aren't people doing things like putting QR codes on the back of tags, and then when you scan that QR code, there's a message from the talent or something specific to the city that you're in? Like, where's the innovation on that kind of stuff? Like, I always think about on the music side, Coldplay did those wristbands that had the album on it, right? And they gave it away when you went to their live concert. You like got to your seat and there was a wristband with your whole album on it. Like, they need to be thinking in terms of that. Like, that'll help the live experience too, but people want to be incentivized to get merch in a unique way, I think. And it's, instead of I bought a t-shirt, I paid money for this really cool thing, is such like a different thing. Like, I got this t-shirt, I wear it all the time, and I scanned a QR code and a video message pops up or whatever. Like, thinking in those terms and pushing forward in that way, I think is crucial. That these are all kind of weaving together, like doing cool shit, the live experience, merch, like all of these kind of interweave with each other. So it's kind of pulling what thread is where it starts and working backwards, it seems like. They could be doing a much better, I feel like every wrestling promotion could be doing better with their merch, but especially AEW from what they're offering products. Designs are trending in the right direction, I think. Another thing I think that they could get better at is nurturing strategic relationships. Now, this was something that was a huge strength of theirs that AEW also, or that WWE rather, also evened out, I think, a lot. Media relations, the community relations that just seemingly went away with Cody Rhodes. I don't know what happened to that community outreach program, but it's basically gone. They were doing karaoke nights with talents as fundraisers. They were like the most accessible brand to everybody. Now there's even things as nuanced as if we're trying to make thumbnails, WWE has their highest quality photos out like that, and AEW doesn't. And so we have to go fishing for low quality, low resolution photographs to make thumbnails, or we have to wait around for a while. Like little things like that can really affect your relationships with media, with your communities, with your audience, of course. I'm sure investors, if it's showing up in other places, it's inevitably going to show up there. So they need to get back to cultivating those relationships. Now, I do want to mention, like, AEW has expanded rapidly in 5 years, right? They used to have 2 hours of programming, 4 pay-per-views, and we have gone so far beyond that. We are now at 10 pay-per-views. We have Rampage as an extra hour of programming and the same taping, though, as Dynamite. We have the Collision tapings with ROH. All of that has to get edited and sent places on top of like getting those photos out. You're now creating pay-per-view cards for multiple brands. Like there's so much more going on in AEW. It's not surprising that these things are not as much of a priority as they used to be, but bringing them back with a little bit more intensity, I think could be a really, really good thing. The other thing I would like to see is more behind the scenes content. I understand their hesitations about doing this, especially when their locker room was a little more volatile than it seems to be now. But they used to do some really cool stuff. I think about that CM Punk return when they showed you the production shots of it. That was awesome. They took BTE away from us. They took away being the elite. They gave us being the Dark Order. But that always had like this really cool blend of, it had its own through lines, but it also just had some really cool behind the scenes footage. They have so many resources available to them. Like, why there hasn't been a docuseries of Mikey Ruckus making themes is beyond me. Like, there are so many things that is it like it's not a protected business anymore. Nobody's trying to hide any secrets on anything. So expose it, use it as marketing fodder. I know there's expected to be, I think, an uptick in the amount of content that they're providing to Warner, but liven up those socials a little bit. I hate the speed title. I think it is so fucking stupid, but they're making a ton of money off of it, and the numbers are great because they're 3-minute matches, right? I'm not saying go make a blue sky title, but what I am saying is, everybody talks about that Meat Mayhem match. I said, make it a Meat Madness tournament and have the meatiest guys that are available in wrestling to you be in a March Madness style tournament. Why not? Do your mixed tag thing on socials. Bring back AEW Dark, obviously. But like, there are so many things that are not specifically on your television, and also not like backstage interviews or TikTok trends or anything like that you could be creating so much more of for social. And I think it would make it feel a little bit cooler. I think you would see more personality show up through that. And I think that's something that would just be overall extremely, extremely healthy. So those are my big 5 for AEW. It's funny, I don't think I realized how many of them wove together all at once. Like, doing cool shit with your merch would enhance the live experience. Like, there's all these little miniature cycles that seem to show up in wrestling. So I hope you guys liked this video. I'm having fun making these. I'm trying to keep them around 20 minutes, and we're at 19 minutes and 40 seconds-ish right now, so I'm going to get out of here. But please subscribe if you haven't already. It means the world to me. You guys really, really showed up for the last one of these. We're going to keep these going. Let me know what you thought about the things that I said in this video. Let me know what you think AEW could be doing better from a non-creative standpoint, from more of that wider company standpoint. But thank you so much for tuning into this one. Please leave a like on the way out. I appreciate you so much. We'll be back with this series closer to the end of the month, looking at the things that these companies are doing very, very well.